friends. It is December 31st, 2024, and I'm squeaking in one last video. I'm hoping to post this on January 1st as a New Year's gift to all my dozens and dozens of fans. Hope you all had a great holiday season. I had a great time with my family. Got some cool stuff and got some days off. So guess what? We're going to record a video today. So we are on episode 4, which I call A Night at the Arena. So we start out with the other 3 party members. Last time we talked, once the party got to Port Nianzaru, they kind of split up a little bit. Czyzz, Fizz, and Han went one way, and we talked about them last week, where they were hired to find a gladiator that had welched on some bets, and found out that he was actually a pretty nice guy and he was being framed. So now they have a new companion. That guy's name is Gaylen. So then after that all happened, then they went back to the hotel, to the flaming lizard, a thundering lizard. Well, let's talk a little bit about what Talfen, Traden, and Gorex were up to. So they did a little bit more exploring around the port district and went up to the top. There's a couple temples up there, bunch of interesting people. They passed by sort of a grand salon, and were offered jobs because of their incredible good looks. They denied those jobs for some reason. While they were up there, they met a half-orc priestess named Undril. Now she was a volunteer for the Order of the Gauntlet, which is a group of knights and paladins that are... their quest is to rid Chult of all of the undead, which you'll see as this campaign goes is a pretty lofty goal. Anyway, the Order of the Gauntlet had set up a camp called Camp Righteous, and there were a bunch of people coming to volunteer, and Undril happened to get there first. So she's alone and having to wait for everybody else to show up before she can go and report. And she's very interested in getting a little experience and hopefully getting to the camp before too long. She doesn't want to have to wait. They talked a little bit about that. They talked about them going into the jungle and things like that. She asked if she could tag along. They said they weren't sure what their plans were, but she's welcome to come along. If she wanted to just wait there at one of the temples, they'll come back and get her. So our party's just making friends as they go. After that exchange, another person approached them, very kind of sketchy, came through the shadows, cloaked figure came up to him, whose name was Roka. And he didn't disclose who he's working for, but he said that he's investigating Baldur's Gate and their activities here in Chult. So there is a fort about a day's journey away from Port Nianzaru. It's really one of the only other constantly occupied areas in all of Chult, because Chult is just completely overrun and overgrown. But there is a fort. It's called Fort Belawarian, and it was established by Baldur's Gate. The captain there is named Liara. Well, Baldur's Gate seems to kind of assume that they have authority in Chult, and they especially in the wilderness, not in Port Nianzaru. That is 100% under the direction of the merchant princes, but Baldur's Gate's kind of trying to seize an opportunity, something they think is an opportunity, and control the rest of Chult. They have a band of mercenaries called the Flaming Fist, who constantly patrol the jungles looking for treasures and artifacts and anything else that they can find that they can bring back to Baldur's Gate. But they do it in kind of a enforcer kind of way, like they just assume they have the ability to do things. One of the things they do is they require explorers to pay for a charter, an exploration charter, which isn't cheap. And if you don't have one of those and you get confronted by one of these patrols, then you're going to be in a lot of trouble. So obviously Baldur's Gate's trying to flex their muscles a little bit here down in Chult, and Roka's not a big fan of that. Also, he kind of has reason to believe that the pirates that are infesting the coastline seem to be letting ships with Baldur's Gate flags to get through unscathed, while every other ship is systematically routed and plundered. So Roka's got the idea that maybe Captain Liara is somehow in league with the pirates, and he needs to get there and search for clues. But by himself, he can't really do that, so he's hoping that the party will go with him to cause a diversion. And while the party's got everybody diverted and looking the other way, Roka could possibly sneak in and do some snooping and see if he can figure out if there really is a connection. So at first, the party wasn't super excited about maybe being part of this kind of international espionage kind of going on. But Roka did say that if they'd helped him, he would buy them their charter, their exploration charter. Plus, he would give them access to a couple of the jungle guides to help them as they traveled. So with that in mind, they thought, that's probably not too bad of an idea. Let's go meet with the others and talk it through. So they finally make their way back to the Thundering Lizard and meet up with the other parts of their party. And they find a table not far from Volo's table. Volo is obviously surrounded by fans and people and signing books and getting all the free drinks that he could ever want. And they discussed their plans. The other group talked about this deal with Roka, and it was decided that they would take that. The guides and the charter being very valuable to the things that they're planning on doing. While they're here at the inn, it's a very loud and festive environment. There's a musical group that's up on the stage that are playing, and the main vocalist is a beautiful Chultan woman with a streak of just bright green hair, and just when she was singing, they were all enraptured by it, and they were, she was up there doing a particularly gorgeous rendition of a song that they all knew, and they kind of looked up at her, and instantly she stopped singing, and these kind of purple bruises started forming on her skin, and she just fell straight down on the stage, dead as dead. Well, one of the other band members was her brother, and he's obviously devastated and picked her up and was holding her and was muttering, not again, not again. Apparently she had recently had a horrible accident, and one of the clerics in town was able to raise her back up. And he just said, we had our second chance, and now you're gone again. And it was awful. Obviously, the night pretty much came to a crashing halt. The next morning, Traden, the cleric Tiefling, decided he wanted to do a little bit more exploring. So he went down to the main market, which is called the Grand Souk. And this was just a hustle, bustle, everything under the sun that you could possibly buy, you could buy here at the Grand Souk. And he was just doing a lot of browsing. He came across a shop that had, I think, a bunch of kind of antiquities and maybe a few, artifact kinds of things, which interested Traden. Traden's kind of, his story is, he'd been a scholar, a teacher of children, and just craved knowledge. So all his life he worked in kind of not really an orphanage, not really a monastery, but an area where children were sent, kind of like a boarding school, I guess, where he taught children. So he just loved kids and teaching them all about the world. Well, the reason he had left that was he just felt this desire to learn and find more information that he could bring back. So he came to Chult really just in search of knowledge. Could there have been maybe a safer place for him to go to search for knowledge? Probably. But I think Traden was just, he wanted to find what had never been found. So this is where he's come. So anyway, he stopped at this little store and talked to the guy, and really got a lot of information out of the guy about how the merchant princes are over separate parts of the economy. They take over different, one's kind of a spice, and one's kind of clothing and textiles, and one's sort of magic items, and one is, gemstones and things like that. So that's how they focus, and then they all kind of work as a council to keep the city running, which is in their best interest, since they're making massive fortunes off of it. So Traden sat there and talked this guy's ear off and got a whole bunch of information, and then kind of just left. And the shopkeeper, who was really hoping to get a sale, was not super excited about, having wasted all this time with this, nosy outsider, then still not get anything out of it. So while Traden was up early at the market, Talfen and Gorex had decided that they wanted to go check out the arena and see what was going on there. So down sort of in the eastern part of the city, there was a big grand Colosseum arena, and there were constantly fights and events and all kinds of spectator sports going on there. They showed up and they were asked if they wanted to participate, and they'd been cramped on the ship for so long and hadn't really gotten anything to do, so they were like, yeah, let's stretch our legs a little bit and go fight. So the rules were a little bit different at this Colosseum. Nothing was to the death. There's just not enough people coming and going out of Port Nanzaru to be killing off all of the potential contestants. So most of the weapons are dulled. There's no, missile weapons of any kind. And there are clerics standing by to heal and revive anyone who gets hurt. So it's really not a life or death kind of thing. It's really more of a money kind of thing. And they went in, and it was really just a exhibition kind of fight. And I think it was 3 just local toughs against them, and they handily took care of them. It was a matinee crowd. Not very many people there. There was some rejoicing and some clapping, but not much. As they left the ring, the organizer said, "Hey, come back later today. We have a much bigger prize and a much more challenging obstacle. If you have friends, bring them back, and I'll waive the fee. I think people are going to love you newcomers." So that was great, and that's what they did. So they went back to the Thundering Lizard. Everybody else had woken up. Their plan was to go find Roka sometime that afternoon to start their trip off to Fort Belwarian. But first, they all decided to make some money and then go to the arena. Once they showed up at the arena, all of them signed up and volunteered to go into the ring, except for Traden. Traden decided he wanted to sit on the stands. They all placed bets on themselves, and they went on down and got ready for the first fight. The 5 of them walk out into this giant arena, sand floors, tall walls around it, and then rows and rows of seating. And this was not the matinee crowd. This was the main event crowd. So the stands were packed. It was very loud. People were throwing flowers out onto the sand and things like that. So they were announced as the newcomers, the out-of-towners, and they kind of stepped out into their side of the ring and got ready. At the other end, they could tell there was a gate, so they just assumed that that's where the opponents would come from. Well, as they were standing there, little gates on the floor, right at the floor level, all around the whole Colosseum, opened up, and water gushed in. And it didn't take long for there to be about 5 feet worth of water all the way around the whole Colosseum, which they were not ready for. Fizzbang, being of the gnomish persuasion, was treading water, and he instantly knew that he wasn't going to be much good, trying to keep his head above the water. So he instantly changed form into a bear. So then we had this lumbering bear up out of the water, so it was a little bit better. And then the terror struck that the foes they'd be facing were not other humans or humanoids, they were sharks. Several sharks came darting out, grabbing at their knees, jumping up and grabbing their arms. It was terrifying because it was so unexpected. Fizz Bear just was slapping with his giant claws trying to hack these sharks up. Luckily, someone cast Fairy Fire and hit all the sharks, so they were able to see. Because before that, even though the water wasn't completely murky, it's kind of hard to see a shark coming up on you when you're at the water level. Then all of the sharks were glowing, and they were able to pinpoint them and get their attacks in and take them down. Cheers! The crowd went wild. The water drained out very, very quickly. You can tell that the people of Port Nyanzaro and people of Chult are really good with water. They live in a very wet climate. It rains a lot. So they have to be very good at dealing with water. So it drained away quickly. Soon the ground was just as nice and dry as it was when they started. So the next challenge was a pack of velociraptors. And they came flying through the gate, just screaming and yelling in their pack, came flying right towards the group. And the group's still kind of, washing or trying to scrape all the water off of themselves. And these screaming dinosaurs come just fleeing at them. And Han had a great idea. Han charged, screaming and yelling as well. And right where they were just about on him, he pulled back into his turtle shell and just flopped down on the ground. And this confused the dinosaurs. They were still enraged and they didn't have anywhere to go with it. So they just started scratching and attacking and biting at this shell, trying to get Han out of it. And it was fairly impregnable, especially to these little dinosaurs. And from there, the other party members were able to pretty easily pick them off and get through the second stage of the competition. Incidentally, I guess it is fight to the death for animals, just not for, people folk, which, I don't know, you can judge the Chultans for that if you'd like. Anyway, so that was taken care of. 2 down. This is a 4-stage fight. So 2 stages down, they're doing just fine. A few cuts and scrapes, but nothing too dangerous. So for the 3rd stage, out from the end comes a halfling woman with just a shock of red hair, long flowing red hair, in a green and yellow martial arts gi. And then she was flanked by 2 other kind of tough looking guys with clubs. And apparently the announcer announced out that this is a famous martial artist from the Sword Coast named Shar. And she was here as kind of alone. She was just out, I guess, fighting her way through Faerun. But she was there to just show them what for, and very skilled at the martial arts. When the announcer said go, she sprinted right towards Han and just kicked the crap out of him. Just flew through the air, punch, slap, spear, almost knocked him back, and still had an extra kick for Fizzbang, who was back to human or back to gnome form at this point. His bear form being deactivated when he took some damage. So just a fireball of action and fists and feet. Took them aback. They were not ready for that much violence that quickly from such a small little person. The fight went back and forth. Gorex got some punches in. Talfen was kind of reeling a little bit from some of the slaps and things that he got. Finally, Fizz was almost down. He took another punch right to the face, and he shifted once again into the form of a Deinonychus and charged the Fists of Fury woman and was able to knock her down and do some pummeling of his own while she was on the ground. Finally, she tapped out, and she was pretty impressed that they were able to take him down. But they were bruised and battered from this little tiny redhead. Don't mess with the gingers. All right, so this brings us to the main event, the 4th stage of this arena show. And out from the gate comes 4 pretty hulking dudes, all with big mauls, big huge battle hammers, but they had this kind of hard rubbery plastic covering on them to make them, I guess, less lethal. Still very painful, but not lethal. And this was a showdown. So the party members had been through 3 stages already, and no rest, no healing, no nothing. They got through the first 2 stages fine, but Shar and the other guys really worked them over. So they're not in the best of shape when these 4 muscle-bound dudes come out. And they were really good with these hammers, and they seemed to be hitting with all of their strength and hitting critically, you might say. And pretty instantly, Han, the Tortle Barbarian, goes down. He's just down for the count. From there, hammer swinging, Gorex runs in with his hammer. He gets a few good swipes in, but he's just ganged up on and just takes a massive hit to the face, and he's down. So now 2 of the 5 players are down. Fizz in Deinonychus form is able to kind of juke in and out and do some damage and avoid some of the major heavy strikes. Talfen, while normally he's a knife thrower, he was just kind of throwing these blunted objects at him and wasn't doing quite as much damage as he used to, but he was able to kind of stay back and give a little bit of range to these guys. They were able to get 3 of the 4 down, and there was 1 guy left, and he seemed to be the leader. He seemed to be a little more of a dude than the rest of them, and he was just enraged. You can tell that maybe these were the local heroes, the local champions, and they kind of are used to just mopping the floor with people. And so he kind of screams out in rage and just bashes his hammer on the ground, and the protective plastic comes flying off of it, and underneath is just a shimmering steel maul that could take down a brick wall. So he screams and charges right at Talfen and just lays him out right in the guts with this maul and knocks him down instantly. And he's down unconscious. He can't even hardly move. And the whole crowd just goes nuts, and they're screaming, they're booing. This is not how this works. This guy's obviously trying to kill these newcomers that people have started liking. Back and forth. We have Fizzbang, we have Czyzz kind of darting in and out, trying to dodge all these deadly blows. They still have their blunted weapons. They don't even have anything that they could counter the deadly strikes of. And from the stands, Traden is up there just yelling, just viciously mocking this guy and getting in his head, and he's not sure of himself, and he's kind of opening himself up to some of these attacks from the Deinonychus and from the Drow. And so finally, after back and forth, and a couple another really major hits on our players, the 4th guy goes down and kind of crumbles to the ground, and the crowd goes wild. Flowers, all kinds of things throwing into the stadium. Everyone's cheering. The clerics rush out even before the announcer is done, kind of saying that the fight is over. They rush out and start healing all the party members and healing 3 of the muscle builder guys. But the 4th guy who cheated, they just left him be, and he expired on his own. And for that, they won a huge purse, and they won a bunch of money from the bets that they had put in on themselves. Really were touted as heroes. Everyone was so excited they wanted to meet them. They finally got out of the stadium after a whole bunch of the throng of fans that came up to them, and started walking down the street. And as soon as they were alone, at least as soon as they were away from the crowds, Roka comes up in his little cloak and says, "We're ready to go. The ship is ready. It sails tonight at dusk. Come down to the shipyards, and we've got your passage already paid for." From there, they decided that they would see if Undril, the half-orc priestess that they'd met, was interested in going as well. They figured more the merrier. It's our 6 party members, along with Gaylen, the Gladiator, and now Undril, the priestess, all heading towards the docks and ready to head off to Fort Belawarian. What a fun session this was to play. There's just something about arena gladiator fights that gets players excited. we had a great time. Little DM note, the martial artist Shar that I talked about was actually a character that I built and played in a campaign with these same guys, my same friends. So it was kind of fun to bring that character back into this campaign as kind of a little callback. So that was super fun. I recently saw Gladiator 2, and I don't know if you watch it. I'll just straight up say that I thought it was crap, but maybe I'm just old and ornery. But there is a scene where the Colosseum is filled with water and there's sharks in it, and I just laughed the whole time. I'm like, yeah, that's a pretty cool idea. All right, well, I hope you're liking these. Please give me some comments on what I can do better. Do you like the music? Do you like the sound effects? Do you like the images? Do you like my goofy videos of minis? I'm just trying to keep things so it's not just me talking, and make these entertaining. I want these to be story time. Like, I want you to be wondering what the next episode will bring. So I'm going to just keep doing them. I hope you like it. Please like, share, subscribe makes me happy. We've got so many more subscribers. And thank you so much for wanting to hang out with me. I'll be back next time. Rock on. Oh, rock on. How do you do it? It's been a long time.